Hi everyone, my name is Therese Fitzgerald and I work on the TU Dublin Access to Apprenticeship programme and I'm moderating today's event. I'd just like to start by thanking everyone for joining us today and a huge thank you to all the panellists who I'd like to welcome. So I might start with Darina. You're very welcome here today. Darina is the Systems Operation Senior Lead at AirGrid. Then we have Mairead O'Leary. Mairead is here with us from SAP Intern. She's the SAP Intern Experience Program Lead. And Martha Kinch is a second year apprentice with the ESB. And Amy Rowe is a software development engineer with MasterCard. Yay, I got all the titles right. So thank you so much for joining us today. You're very, very welcome. I'm super excited to hear you talking about the importance of work placements, summer internships and apprenticeships in the development of industry skills, and how important it is to develop these skills in order to prepare you for your future professional career. Before we get started, I'd just like to say a few things. So this is our second virtual event in a series of 4. It is a TU Dublin cross-campus initiative and it has been organised by the lovely Leslie Schumacher, who is the coordinator of the STEAM program, Michelle Luby, who is a senior engineering lecturer at Blanchardstown, and Rebecca Jones, who coordinates the Building a STEAM program with the Access and Civic Engagement Office. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. And myself, I did help to organise it as well. So thank you to all of my colleagues and to everyone else who's helped to put this together today. The event is being broadcast to all TU Dublin students and to second level students. So you're all very welcome for joining to join us today. I'm super excited to hear from the panelists, but before we get started, I'm just going to hand over to Leslie, who's going to talk you through the survey that we'd like you to complete at the end. And then I'm going to pass you over to Michelle, who will share a video about the Stellar program. This is of most relevance to TU Dublin students. So Leslie, if you'd like to take it away.
I'm going to keep it brief, and really what's going to happen is for everybody who's signed up through Eventbrite, I'm going to be sending you out a short, take you maybe 5-minute, little questionnaire to do just to help us understand what works, what doesn't work. We really need your input and your feedback so that we can keep shaping these events to suit your needs as effectively as possible. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, I'll just share that video now, Trace.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, and I'll share that QR code then at the end as well for any students who need it.
Okay, super. Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Leslie. Just to open the event today, I actually have one of the graduates of the Access to Apprenticeship program. She couldn't join in, so she sent a video talking about her experience of doing a 2-week work placement on the Access to Apprenticeship program. I suppose just for those of you that don't know, it's a 12-week course where students get to come in and try out lots of different trades to see which one they like, and then they get to make an informed decision about what they might want to progress onto, and we support them to get a 2-week work placement. So Mikey Nortridge did the program, I'd say 2018. She was one of the first people to do the Access to Apprenticeship program, and she shared a little video talking about her experience about work placement and how much it benefited her. So just bear with me 1 second.
Hi, my name is Mikey Nortridge. I did the Access to Apprenticeship program in 2018, and I'm currently working for Jones Engineering in Intel as a plumbing apprentice. I'm a third-year apprentice at the moment. I did my work experience in Intel for Jones's as well, and I found the work experience to be so helpful because when you're in the program, obviously you're learning about each trade and it's good, and you're learning from people who've done the trades. So like you are getting a really, really good experience, but to go out on site and actually work in the company that you want to do, or to work in the trade you want to do at least, is like 10 times better because you are literally getting the most hands-on experience you can. And you're working with people who've been in the trade for years. I got to do my work experience with someone who was in the trade for 50 years. So to hear his stories was incredible, and to work next to him was amazing because he's like literally just having like a book right next to you, and you could just ask questions and he wouldn't shy away from any topic. Like he let me ask any questions I wanted. But the work experience part was, I found super beneficial because like it also took away part of like how intimidating it was going to be to go on site. So like I was like kind of nervous because obviously being a girl going onto site was very scary because I've never done anything like this before. So having those 2 weeks extra work experience and meeting everyone before I even got the job helped me like calm down a bit, and it made it a little bit easier then when I luckily got the job and then got to go onto the site officially. I already knew people going in as well, which was great. And I knew what I was getting into as well. My 2 weeks work experience, they let me weld, which was crazy because I didn't think they'd let me actually do anything. I thought I'd have to watch, but I was allowed to weld. They were showing me how to fit the pipes. They were showing me like what pipes they use for which systems and why. And like everybody wanted to teach me, which was really good. Like everybody was like, oh, someone new who wants to work here. Like, and they were giving me all the knowledge they could, which was so helpful. I made it such a pleasant and fun experience as well. I had so much fun in my work experience because I was like, whoa, like I'm actually out here and I'm getting to try everything, and it was so much fun. And then it like I loved the company I was working with, and luckily they offered me a job.
Sorry, it's like it finished just a bit abruptly there. Okay, well, I hope you could all hear and see that okay. I'm very grateful that Mikey made that little video for me so she could talk about her experience of doing work placement. And I think it's really obvious that she not only developed technical skills, learning how to weld and do loads of things in her 2-week work placement, but she also like really developed her confidence. And I think her professional development skills as well. And of course, she was very lucky to get an opportunity out of it. And she's now 3 years down the line and she's a 3rd-year apprentice. So I'm delighted for her. I would love to now hear from our panelists to hear about your experience in terms of work placements, internships and apprenticeships, and how important you think they are in developing industry skills. So I'm just going to start with a general question that I'd like to ask all panelists, and that is, what is a tip you wish you had known before you started college or your apprenticeship? And Darina, I might start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Trace. Hey, everyone. Yeah, so I think when you're about to start a college course, the main thing is don't worry if you don't know exactly what career or job you want to do after that course. most courses, including the one I did, which was engineering, are actually quite a broad base, and they're kick-off points for lots of different career options. So use the time during your course to find out as much as you can about what possible options are available to you once you qualify. And there's a few different ways of doing that. So like the obvious one is talk to as many people as possible, past graduates, people working in jobs you think you might like. Ask them how they got into it, and you'll be surprised that many people don't take a direct route into a particular career. And if you identify an area that you want to get into, there's usually a path to get there from where you are. It's just a matter of identifying it and following it. Another thing that I personally found really useful was attending things like this during college, careers events and talks. And you just get an opportunity to hear lots of different people talking about their own careers, and it can give you ideas about what direction you might want to go in yourself. Another thing then that I found useful was the professional bodies. So in engineering, there's obviously Engineers Ireland, the IET, the Institution of Engineering and Technology. You can join these bodies as a student, and they run talks and events regularly where you get to hear from a range of different people working across the industry. And you'll probably be surprised by how diverse the different areas of the industry are. And then the big one is there's work placements and internships. So I can't stress how useful I found work placements when I was in college. And your college course might formally include a work placement, or it might not. That doesn't really matter. You can apply for an internship program in a company regardless of whether you're going through your college or not. So if there's an area that you think you might be interested in, research what companies are important in that area and apply to those for an internship. And it'll give you a really good flavour of that area of the industry. It'll let you get a feel for whether you like it or not. And you'll also get a very good feel for the culture of the company you're in, and you can see if that's something you personally respond to or if it's an environment you'd like to work in. Then of course there's a huge advantage of internships, that they're a really great way to develop the communications and people skills side of the workplace, which, you know, they don't generally get the same focus as the technical side in lots of college courses, but they're just as important as technical ability and knowledge to anyone's success in any career. So yeah, I think those are my top tips and my thoughts on what was useful to me when I was in college.
Thank you so much, Drina. I think it's a pity I didn't meet you before I started college. I think you've given some really, really awesome tips, not only in terms of like where people can research and what they can find out and things to look into that you mightn't think of, like the professional bodies, and like looking for work placement, even if it's not part of your program. But I also like what you said at the start about, you know, like everything is broad enough. So even if you go into someone and you think that area is not for you straight off the bat, you still have options, and there'll be plenty of different routes that you can take. So thank you very much. Maureen, I don't know, is there anything you would like to add? Anything different? Any tips you had thought of?
I suppose for me, I kind of realized it takes a while to actually settle into college when you start. I think it's quite a significant change from what you're used to in school, and in terms of lectures, the level of autonomy you have, trying to figure out if the course you're doing is what you want. And I think I completely agree with Darina when she said, take up the opportunities to do any sort of placements. I did social science, and in our third year, we had the opportunity, or second year, we had the opportunity to do either find yourself a placement or do an essay. And I took the placement, and I actually realized that I wanted to change my career towards my final year. So it really, really helped me, and I took the probably harder option, but I'm glad I did it.
Super. Thanks so much, Maureen. I definitely would have picked a work placement over an essay as well if I was in college. But yeah, no, and it's good to hear, you know, it's interesting to hear people's stories and the different routes people ended up taking and how you make your decisions. So thank you very much for sharing. Martha, I don't know if there's any tips you'd like to share now, your second year into your apprenticeship.
Yeah, second year now, yes. I found that tips I kind of wish I knew before coming into the apprenticeship was probably that I kind of wish I'd familiarised myself with different aspects, because I knew I was going to hopefully gone to electrical side of an apprenticeship, and I kind of wish now, looking back and I thought I'd take notes, like say looked underneath the plug of a kettle and like just taking notes of different, like 1 or 2 different bits, because I knew I had an interest in it. So I think going into an apprenticeship, I wish the couple of the months coming onto it that I could take a bit more of a kind of like noticing different bits and bobs. But yeah, in fairness, like with not really many tips I'd give myself looking back before the apprenticeship now, to be fair.
Okay, super. Thanks very much, Martha. I mean, I think you've made a few good points there anyway, in terms of like, it is really good, like if you're thinking about doing a particular apprenticeship, to do things like what is around the house that's relevant to you, to familiarize yourself with it. So thank you very much. And lastly, Amy, is there any tips you'd like to share?
Most of the stuff I wanted to say has already been said, which is great. Like Darina said about the internship, like even if, and I think Mairead, that's what you said, like an internship is always such a good opportunity, because you either find out that you want to do something or you don't want to do something. And I feel like that's such a good, you know, even if it was maybe not so much of a positive experience, at least you can come out of it and say, okay, that's something I don't want to do, let's look for something else. A couple of other things. So I would definitely recommend getting involved in a society. So for example, if like say I was a computing student, I wish I had went into a computing society, because I think it's the closest thing to the working life without actually being in industry. So, you know, for example, everybody has different roles, different responsibilities in the society, but everybody works together for a common goal, which is obviously the same as industry. So I think if I was going back, I probably would have definitely gotten involved in a networking society. And I mean, it also gives you the opportunity to get to know people who have similar interests to you. And I think probably one last thing I would say is definitely take up as many practical opportunities as possible. So if you have the option of taking, let's say, for example, a theory-based module or a practical module, I would definitely always say take the more practical-based one, because you might think that the theory-based one is easier or it might be more useful, but I can guarantee that the practical skills you gain are definitely a lot more useful. So that's probably all I wanted to say on that.
Thank you so much, Amy. Oh, thank you, all of you. You've all given some wonderful tips. I think it's going to be absolutely invaluable for all the students listening today, and even for me. I think you can never hear enough or get enough ideas about different things. That you're always progressing throughout your career. Amy, the students have submitted in some questions, so I'm going to go straight back to you and ask you another question. So how did you find the transition from college to industry? Are there any skills you feel could have been focused on more in college that would have helped you in the transition?
Yeah, so I feel as though the transition is tough between college and industry. There's a lot of changes. You know, for example, in college, you do your assignments and they're all segregated from each other. And as soon as you hit the submit button, that's it done. You know, you don't have to ever look at it again. Whereas in industry, everything is interconnected. You know, it's very, very rare, especially in computing, that you will work on something that nobody else has ever touched before, or you won't be affecting something that everybody's doing. And you know, I think as well, a really big motivation and something that's really cool to me personally in industry is seeing something that you worked on move to production or move to something that the customers are using. So whether you're a business analyst and you're writing the tasks, whether you're a developer and you're, you know, writing the application code, or whether you're, you know, a tester maybe and you're testing the code, it's a really good motivation for you to actually see your code move into something that customers are actually using. And I think the internships definitely help you for your final year. You know, I think there's a lot of skills that you gain during internships, your time management skills, and maybe your ability to look at the bigger picture and see what's actually important and where to focus your time on. And as well as that, I think, you know, there's a lot of skill that you gain that maybe you don't realize. So like you said in the video with Mikey, she, you know, her confidence, you know, like went through the roof after she finished it. And it was very similar to me. You know, I did a lot of demonstrations and stuff, which really helped my presentation skills, which then in turn helped me to, you know, give better presentations through my final year of college. So think that's pretty cool. And just to answer your other question as well, I feel like in college, especially in the first couple of years, you get very structured assignments and you get very, this is kind of what you have to do. Whereas when you come to the industry, it's kind of different because you get given a task and you can kind of complete that task whichever way you see fit. And in software engineering, at least, you will complete a task, people will review it, and then you can adjust it if they have any comments, but most of the time it's up to you which approach you take, which I think is something really cool and something that's a bit different. So
thanks, Amy. I think you've made some really good points there. It's true, the transition from college to industry or to work it's a big jump. So yeah, if you have an opportunity, like you said, to do an internship or a work placement, it's something that could really help you. But I love the fact that you talked about actually there's loads of skills that you're developing in college that sometimes you don't realize you're developing, and to be aware of that, and they're things that you'll bring to industry even unknowns to yourself. So thank you very much. Darina, I might move on to you now, and I wonder if you have any advice for young girls starting college with no idea about what they want to do in the future.
Okay, so I think the most important thing is to choose a course that you think will excite and interest you, even if at this point you don't know exactly what career that's going to lead to. So when I was in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college until quite late. It was 5th or 6th year. And I didn't really know what I would do. I knew I liked maths and physics a lot, and I had an idea. I had applied for courses where you could study those. But I'd never really considered engineering as an option, probably because I didn't really know any engineers. There weren't any in my family, and I just hadn't talked to any about their jobs. And what opened up the possibility of studying engineering for me was events, career events like this that I went to when I was in 5th and 6th year in school. So I do think it's important to try and expose yourself to those kind of situations where you get to talk to different people about what their careers are and how they got into it. I think that'll give you a lot of ideas about what direction you might want to go to in terms of picking a college course. So yeah, I chose engineering, and the reason I chose it was from talking to those sorts of people. I got a kind of idea that it was a really practical application of maths and physics that I liked, and it was used to solve real world problems. And I was just taken with that idea, which is why I chose to study it. But at the time, I didn't have any fixed idea of what career it would lead to. I just did it because I thought I'd find it interesting to study. So as I went through my degree then, I was interested in different areas. So my degree was in electrical and electronic engineering. And I actually did some internships, a couple of internships in the microelectronics industry as I went through. And I decided after that not to go in that direction. I got more interested in renewable energy and wind energy towards the end of my degree. And I started to go in the power systems direction rather than the microelectronics direction. And I didn't make that decision until right at the end of my degree, to be honest. So that then sort of led me into doing a master's in power system engineering and wind energy. And that led me into the job I have today, which is working in EirGrid. And I'm very much focused on incorporating large amounts of renewable energy onto the Irish power system. So that's how I ended up where I am, but you kind of feel your way through these things as you go along. So, I wouldn't worry too much about what career you're going to have when you start in college. I think the most important thing is to study something that you're interested in, and you'll find what areas you want to work in as you go through.
I think that's awesome advice, Darina. I think you're dead right, actually. Follow what interests you and you will land in your career after that. Your journey will come. So I think that's really good. I mean, that's really where you have to start. Like what do you like to do? What do you like at school? And that's a good basis to try and pick and do some research after that. So thank you very much. And Martha, I'm going to move on to you now. How did you know you wanted to do an apprenticeship?
So I hope you can all hear me and see me okay. But both my parents went into trades. So my mother did a trade over in England as a painter, and my father did a trade as a stonemason. So there's always a kind of an interest that I might at some point look into an apprenticeship. And I found in school throughout 4th, 5th and 6th year that I was more interested in the more practical subjects. So I adored physics, adored construction studies. My favourite subject in the world was engineering. So I had a feeling that I would like to go into like a career close to that. And I found when I was doing my CAO, had such a weird mix, because I knew I wanted to work with my hands, but also kind of do something a little bit with theory as well at the same time. So my mom, like, I think you'll enjoy, because she knows me very well, she does. So like even my CAO, it was a mix of construction studies and physics, but there was no set course that had everything I wanted. And my mom was telling me, look, an apprenticeship has everything. You'll go to college, you'll work with your hands. It kind of looks at every aspect of what I was wanted to do after school. So I applied for ESB and I read through everything, and I kind of realized, you know what, that sounds exactly what I want. I get to go to college, I get a degree, I get to work in construction sites. So it was a really good balance I found of everything that I was looking for when I was leaving school. And then when I got ESB, it was the best thing ever. And when I started, I realized it was the best choice I could have made, because it was the perfect balance of everything that I had been looking for in my CAO, but just couldn't quite find.
Wow, thanks so much, Martha. It's so interesting to hear everyone's story, and that both your parents are in the trades. You don't hear that every day. So that's really fascinating. And I love to hear how people, yeah, I love to hear how people make their decisions. It's really interesting how people come to decide what path they're going to take. So like Darina was saying about, oh, these were the subjects I was interested in at school, and then I did research around the different areas. And for you, you were like, oh, I really liked this, and this subject, but I'm not sure what's going to lead to it, but I love working with my hands, and I want to go to college, and I want to work with my hands. So it's great that you found the path, your path, and that you got into the ESB. So congrats on that. Now, just to jump back to you, Maureen, how would an undergraduate student go about finding an internship?
I'd say that the careers office and placement officers in colleges are invaluable in helping with this. Most companies will advertise directly with them each year, and they're able to help you prepare, tell you how the interview process runs, the time of year it happens. We contact the colleges every single year, and that's how we would advertise most of our internships. You could also check out a company's website, contact their recruitment team. I actually get contacted that way quite a lot as well. My one piece of advice is just do it on time and don't leave it last minute. So we take on about 100 interns in SAP every year, and we complete most of our recruiting during the end of September, kind of October. So you need to be checking this out and thinking about it from September, just so that you don't miss the boat. Because I have people contact me now, and it's not that long ago we recruited, but it's actually gone past our dates at this stage.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is there, just to ask, I wonder, where do students get notifications, or where could they find when, like, all the information about the internships and things like that? I know you were saying to go to the placement officers, but is there anywhere else it's advertised in terms of dates and things, so people will be aware of deadlines and stuff?
Yeah, so generally in most of the colleges we work with, we've been working with probably 11 colleges this year. They're all around the same time of the year for internships, particularly if you're in your third year looking to go into your fourth year. The recruitment happens in the autumn.
Okay.
For all of this, because a lot of particularly the technical kind of courses, engineering, computer science, they start their placements or their internships from January onwards. So the autumn is your time to start looking for them, definitely.
Okay, just to keep that in people's heads.
Yes.
And Mairead, when a student is on an internship, is there any goal that they should try and achieve?
So the one piece of advice I would give to our interns when they start is to make the most of the opportunities they're giving during their internship. So the students, I would say, that achieve the most in SAP get involved. We run a whole program of events and training for our interns outside of their day-to-day work. So, for example, if you were doing a development internship and don't think it's a long-term option for you, you could sign up to do like our job shadowing program and speak with a different team about more customer focused roles. Our aim is to convert our interns into full-time employees. So I always tell our students, make the most, that you use your time wisely, get involved with different events and projects that are taking place in the company, and make a connection maybe with a team that they hope to work with long term in the future.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think those are really important things to keep in mind if you're going for an internship. So it's invaluable advice. Thank you very much, Mairead.
Problem.
And Martha, if I'm going to go back to you, and just if you're to share, do you like what you're doing, and can you describe a typical day, what it's like for you?
Yeah. So I adore what I'm doing. I wake up every day and I genuinely cannot wait to go to work. It's such a good feeling to wake up knowing that you enjoy what you do. So my city centre is lots road. So because that, a lot of the network that we have in ESB is like in city centre would be found underground, whereas most areas such as Harold's Cross, Terranere, outer city centre will be more so overheads. So at the moment I'm working in underground construction. So I wake up every day and go in the city centre and we get our jobs together. So we get our jobs together and we go out in the vans to whatever construction site that is in need of what we need to be doing for the day. So today, for example, I am working in ESB head office and we are jointing 3 cables together and are more or less bringing power to the construction site. So because it's all under massive holes, pull massive cables, join them together and then bring them into the substation, which is kind of a room at the bottom of the building. And then we have to bring them all through there. And yeah, there's a lot involved in fairness, but it's really, really interesting and it's good fun in fairness. Really, really enjoy it. It's heavy work, but it's enjoyable.
Wow. And how long have you been doing the underground? Do you change different sections during your...
So I've been on underground construction since March. Obviously, I wasn't in work during the midst of the COVID lockdown, but since coming back to work, I've been in underground construction. My last rotation was in the metering section, which meant we would be going out doing house calls or setting current transformers for big, massive construction sites because it's a lot of power going into these sites. Wouldn't be the same as a small house. Yeah, so every 15 weeks we swap around, do different sections, so you get to see every aspect of the company you do.
Okay, wow. So so you're on the underground now. What section were you in before this? Just out of curiosity, sorry.
The metering section.
Okay, and you change every 15 weeks. That's how the apprenticeship works. Wow.
Every 15, yeah. So I'm doing my next change now, March. So. Okay.
Do you know what you're going on to next?
I'm not sure yet, but I'm hoping to get called for my college phase. So the way the apprenticeship works is it's split into 7 sections, and I'm hoping now to get called for my phase 2 in college soon enough now for Sulis.
Oh yes, of course. And do you know where you might be going?
So that's next.
That's next.
I'm hoping somewhere in Dublin, but I can end up anywhere really. Don't mind Sol too much.
Yeah, fingers crossed you'll get Dublin. That's great, Martha. Thanks so much.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really interesting.
No worries.
To hear about like what your typical day would look like, which sounds like it could change on any given day, and seeing as you'll be rotating through everything. So thanks very much for sharing. And it does sound like you absolutely love your job. So you're very lucky.
Exactly.
And Darina, I might actually ask you the same question, and I think it's kind of apt because you're obviously working in the same sort of area. So do you like what you do, and could you describe a typical day for us, Darina?
Yeah, so I love what I do. I've been working at EirGrid for 15 years now. And EirGrid, just for people who don't know, EirGrid is the operator of the high voltage electricity transmission system in Ireland and Northern Ireland. So the transmission system transports power in bulk over large distances across the country, from power plants where it's generated to where it's needed to supply electricity to homes and businesses. And we supply power down from the transmission system to the distribution system that's operated by ESB, and they distribute the power locally then to your house. So it's a really interesting place to work. In the time I've worked there, there's been a huge transformation of the Irish power system, where there's been a really rapid transition from a system that's really heavily reliant on fossil fuel-based generation like gas, coal, oil, power plants, to a huge increase in the amount of renewable generation on the system. So that's been mostly wind to date, but we're starting to see other technologies connect now, like solar farms and batteries. And because we have so much wind generation on our system, Ireland is a world leader in the integration of wind generation onto power systems. So we have more wind for the size of our system connected than anywhere else in the world, which means we encounter all the technical challenges associated with that before anyone else does. And we're the first ones who have to come up with solutions to those problems, which essentially involves coming up with innovative ways to maintain a stable power system and keep everyone's lights on, with high levels of wind generation, which is very intermittent source of generation, and it varies a lot with the weather. So yeah, there are huge technical challenges associated with that, and getting to be part of the group of people who are solving a lot of these things first is something that I love and I find hugely rewarding. So yeah, as I said, I've been there 15 years. So I've actually had a number of different varied roles across the business. So I'll tell you about the role I'm currently in, which is the System Operations Senior Lead Engineer. So my team, the System Operations team, manages the operation of the power system from what's happening on the real-time system today to looking out and planning how we're going to operate the system over, say, the next number of weeks out to, say, the next 12 months. So I support and work very closely with the National Control Centre, which is where the transmission system is run from in real time on, you know, a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week basis. So there are 2 EirGrid engineers on shift at all times of the day and night in this control centre, controlling the system and making sure your lights stay on and that there's electricity flowing to everyone's house and to every business across the country that needs it. So there's a lot of technical power system problem solving in my job, but I will say that a huge amount of it involves communication and interaction with other people across the industry, internal to the company, but external as well. So I actually spend most of my day talking to people. And once upon a time, some of that was face-to-face, but now, of course, with COVID restrictions, it's all gone online, which actually works quite well and I've adapted quite well to. But mostly I'm talking to people like power plant owners, wind farm generators, large industrial demand customers, you know, the likes of Pfizer's and Intel, who connect directly onto the high voltage transmission system, ESB, and the list goes on and on. So my day-to-day job it's actually very varied. Things happen very dynamically on the power system. Circuits and transformers trip without warning. You've large generators run into issues and become unavailable. As I said, there's a lot of wind generation on the system. The wind forecast is only reliable a day or 2 ahead, so there's huge uncertainty about the level of wind generation you'll have available to meet demand. And that uncertainty is quite difficult technically to manage and plan for. We also operate 2 500 megawatt direct current links to both Scotland and Wales, and they need to be managed in collaboration with our counterparts in the UK, National Grid UK. So there's a lot of interaction with them as well. And the weather actually really impacts my job. So I'm always keeping an eye on the forecast. Part of my job is to keep an eye on storms. So when there's a storm coming along, I will coordinate and put together a storm management plan to try and protect the electricity supply of customers during storms, when we'd expect to see large numbers of circuits tripping out because of lightning and high winds. So last thing that I mention is I talked about the National Control Centre, where there's 2 people on shift all the time controlling the system. So as well as my day job in the office, I also do shifts in the control centre on a part-time basis. So a few days a month, I'll be one of those 2 engineers on shift, managing the system in real time. So that involves, instructing generators to come on and off as they're needed, monitoring the system using, there's fairly specialised IT systems and tools in the control centre to make sure we can monitor the system at all times. I'd be performing remote control switching on the live network and controlling how power is flowing around the network to make sure the network stays stable and avoiding any blackout situations or loss of supply to customers. So again, that's very dynamic. Lots of unexpected things can happen in that role. Again, tripping of circuits or generators. You get things like gorse fires under transmission lines. A surprising number of balloons get stuck on transmission circuits, and that can cause big issues. So lots of different things can happen unexpectedly, and dealing with them requires sort of dynamic decision making in the moment and lots of talking to people. So it's very exciting. It keeps you on your toes, and that's why I enjoy it so much, I suppose. So yeah, that's a taste of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, that sounds absolutely fascinating, Darina. I mean, I thought the weather impacted my life when I was like, will I be walking to work today? Will I be getting wet or not? But I mean, really, I'm fascinated to hear what you do and to get a better understanding of how everything works. It's absolutely amazing. And even just to hear how diverse your job is, like, doesn't seem like any day would be the same and you could expect anything. Really like interesting when you're, you know, in your career, and I don't know, you get to have challenges and different things all the time. So thank you so much. And Amy, I'm going to move on to you if that's okay. How would you describe where you are right now to a first year student? Is it how you imagined 3 or 4 years ago?
So my title is a software development engineer in tests. So I'm a software engineer who specializes in the testing aspect. So kind of a short background of what happens is a development engineer will develop the application code. So they'll actually make the changes to the application. And then I will write the automation code to automate those functions and to make sure that we aren't putting any, you know, defects or bugs into production for the customers. So just to make sure that everything is kind of moving as it should. When I joined college, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I had an interest in computing. Like my brother and I used to play games and used to build PCs and stuff. So I went into computing, but I had no idea what the future held. I didn't know how many routes there could be. So when I was going to do my internship in third year, I decided that just a regular software engineering or, you know, internship would probably be the best option. It would be kind of the safest option. But through the interview, the interviewer actually thought that I would be suited more for the quality engineering world. So for the testing world, just based on my traits and how I kind of presented myself through the interview. And honestly, I'm so glad I really feel like it fits my personality. And so I finished my internship in 2018 and I got offered a position on the graduate program for the same role. So I haven't looked back. I've been back for like 18 months now. And it's, it is really good that, even if I think, a lot of the time, even if you're not suited for the exact job that you interviewed for, I think companies will try and fit you in where you are suited best, which I think is pretty good. But I think something I didn't really understand before I went to industry, and I think Darina and Martha have kind of said this as well, is that there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes and there's a lot of stuff in the background that you don't actually realize. So when I'm talking to a lot of people, they think, okay, you're a software engineer, you write code all day. I'm like, well, not actually. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, such as, there's a lot of dependencies on other people in the team, on external teams. There's a lot of, planning and meetings and stuff that you have to go to. And, you actually realize that there's never a day where I just sit down and write code. There's always these things going on, which I think is, it's something that I didn't realize until I went into industry, but I think it's so interesting because it makes you respect everything so much more when you know how much work actually it takes for something to get to a customer. Even if it might be a small change, it might be there was a lot of things happening in it. And as well, I'm kind of I'm a part of some committees in MasterCard. So I'm a part of the university engagement and the intern committees. So that's something as well that kind of is, I didn't realize that those stuff were there until I was in industry. So it's something that's outside of my day-to-day job, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, to kind of put it short, I had no idea 3 or 4 years ago where I'd be, but I am happy where I am.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been just amazing to hear everyone's story and to hear how happy everyone is and how diverse everyone's jobs are, and how important it is to expose yourself, do work experience, think about what you're interested in. And I suppose college and apprenticeships, they're just learning the basics, which allows you to move into a variety of different directions. So that has definitely come true from everyone talking today. And just because particularly you, Amy, and everyone else has kind of touched on it, how yes, you know, you learn your technical skills in college, but actually there's a lot more to work, and you know, you've got your team meetings and it's about talking to people. I would like to finish up with just a bonus question for everyone. Just wondering, what would be your 2 top soft skills that you would encourage young people to work on, like in terms of preparing for their professional life? So maybe we could start with Maureen. So just in terms of 2 top soft skills, I know this is a bonus question now.
Communication is a big one, is a huge one. No matter what industry you're in, and being able to talk to people above you and at your same level, and everyone around the business. And I suppose to be able to take initiative as well is a good one. It's different coming out of college where you are told exactly what, you know, as somebody mentioned earlier on, what you're supposed to do, what your assignment is supposed to be like. And when you're in the work environment, you have to think for yourself quite a lot, and people are relying on you to come up with the ideas.
Okay, awesome. So communication and initiative. I agree totally. And I suppose sometimes I think as well that we actually do have those skills, and that we forget that we're using them in different ways. So if you're part of a club at school, or if you've organized the tuck shop, or you've done some volunteering, it's showing that you have all those skills as well. Absolutely. I think it's good to like identify the soft skills that people should be thinking about now before they're starting their professional careers. So thanks, Maureen, when I'm after calling you out first there. Would anyone else like to go next if you've anything different to add in terms of maybe the 2 soft skills that you think would be the most important? I'm happy to. Darina, do you want to go?
I will. I'm going to say something very similar, to be honest. So like communications, I can't stress how important communications are. Like, you can be the best technical person in the world, but it doesn't matter unless you're able to communicate with people. And I will say that as a naturally introverted person myself, you know, there would have been times where I would have lacked confidence about speaking in public or presenting, things like that. So I think I would advise that if you get an opportunity at any stage in college, or when you're in an internship, or any situation where you get to present or speak to people, take it, because I found that you gain confidence and you get better at it every time you do it. And, you know, I don't think twice about it now, really, whereas I would have been quite shy when I was in school, and it took a bit of practice to get to a point where I had that confidence to speak in that way, and to give presentations without giving them a second thought, really. So I think that's probably my main piece of advice, is just take your opportunity to practice that skill whenever you can, because it's not always focused on in college courses.
Awesome. Thanks, Darina. I totally agree with you. I mean, I myself feel I would have been shy at school and kind of introverted. And it is a kind of about pushing yourself to build up your communication skills. And the more you do it, the more you expose yourself, the easier it gets. And no matter what job you're doing, communication skills are going to be so important, and you're probably going to be presenting or doing something and have to talk in front of people. So every opportunity, it is important to take it. So thanks very much, Drina, for sharing. Martha or Amy, would any of you like to share in terms of what soft skills you think are important?
I can, or Martha can go, it doesn't matter.
You go there, Amy.
I think, yeah, the same as the lady said, like both of them, you know, communication is so important. You know, presentations is something that I really struggled with a lot, and throughout my work placement, as I said earlier, I had to do a lot of like demonstrations on my work. And I think it really is just something that you need to build up, because especially in STEM, a lot of people are very, introverted, and stuff like today is really just the perfect example of just taking an opportunity and saying, okay, I'll do it. And, you'll figure out the rest later. Another thing that I guess is kind of related to communication is teamwork. So I think it's really important to work, and you're never gonna, like, there's never like a dictator in teams. Like, you have to always try and collaborate and work together. And I think that's something that's really in college, obviously you have your teamwork, but sometimes you kind of realize that one person does all the work, and that's not the way it is in industry, because everybody has different roles. So I think, trying to build really good relationships with people that you're working with and trying to increase your collaboration skills is something that I kind of struggled with, because usually I'm just like, oh, I'll just do it all. And then when I went to industry for my internship, I was like, okay, wait, actually, I can't do it all. That's not how it works. So, oh, sorry, my screen's one off. But yeah, so those are the two things I would definitely say.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. I think you've made some really, really good points as well. You can't forget about teamwork. I mean, no matter where you're working, you're going to have to learn how to work in a team, and I suppose learn how to have your voice in the team and not to carry too much, and that everyone should take an equal load. So thanks very much for sharing. And Martha, is there anything else you'd like to add to that? I know everyone's kind of said things now.
No, in fairness, like in ESB, like in the apprenticeship, I'd say communication is probably the biggest skill that people should work on beforehand, because there is a safety aspect as well when it comes to communication, because you are working with a lot of the time, not as an apprentice, because there is the safety rules there in place to keep us protected, but there is the aspect of the communication is such a big key while working in a team, because if something's live or dangerous, people need to be aware what is and isn't live. So I would say communications and listening skills as well is probably the two biggest things in an apprenticeship, I would say.
Awesome. Thanks, Martha. And I'd say you do a lot of problem solving in there as well.
Big time.
Yeah, I'd say it definitely sounds like you are. At any given time, you're trying to solve things and communicate with others. So I'd just like to say thanks everyone for sharing. You have given like so much in terms of talking about your own experiences, your own insights, and it's absolutely invaluable, not only for the students listening today to hear, but I mean for myself personally. And I'm even thinking now, after I've heard everyone, that I also shouldn't shy away from opportunities that are given to me to continue to try and progress, even if it's putting me outside my comfort zone. It is important to continue to learn and grow. So thanks very, very much for talking to us today and for answering the bonus round question. I really appreciate it. Before we finish up, I just want to say thanks to Leslie and to Michelle and Rebecca, and to all my colleagues, to thank the students who submitted excellent questions, and once again to thank all the panelists, so Darina, Mairead, Martha and Amy. Just before we finish up as well, I'm just going to remind everyone that we will send out a survey, and we would really, really appreciate if you can complete the survey in terms of helping us improve our delivery, as we have another 2 panel events coming up. And I think lastly, Michelle is going to share the QR code for Stellar for any of the students that are part of the Stellar program. If that's okay. Okay, super. And the next panel event will be in February in 2021. I can't believe it's going to be 2021, and I kind of can't wait either. But the next event will be in February, and the topic will be on equality, diversity and inclusion in college and in the workforce. So it should be really, really interesting. Michelle is going to moderate this event, and we will be sending out correspondence about it in the new year. So thanks again to everyone for joining us today, and thanks to all the panelists. Enjoy the rest of your day, and have a lovely Christmas.
Thanks.